Thank you so much for joining. My name is Christine. I am the founder and CEO of GIGA. We are here to transform food systems because there is no time to play small. We're here to unlock giga opportunities and start to think and act at giga scale. So I want to introduce a little bit about what Giga does and why we exist before we turn it over to the topic at hand. So I've spent, a good part of a decade helping to bring to life incredible innovations all over the world that really can make a dent in how we address things like climate resiliency and nourishing people. And in fact, so many of the solutions that we need to solve our planet's most urgent challenges are here right now. But unfortunately, they don't have the pathways to scale that allow them to make that impact that they're capable of. So that's what Giga is here to do. We really work across the ecosystem. We work with startups to help them go Giga, but we also work with investors so that they can deploy capital in smart ways to those bets that can really make a difference. And we work with companies and governments to help them create giga scale impact towards their business goals as well as their sustainability goals. So it's a big job. Somebody's got to do it, and we're here to take it on. Our approach is very action oriented, which is why we brought to life this content series called Giga Insights. And the idea is not to provide another talk shop about the big issues, because we know that there are big issues, and most of us even know a lot about them and what it takes to solve them. But we're here to really provide pragmatic, tangible tools that we can all adopt and act so that we can go further faster. And that is the point of today's session with Dawn, to really talk about something that is, right here at our fingertips, and that's the power of artificial intelligence, and particularly generative artificial intelligence. So she's going to demystify this space and also help us build our own unique tech stacks that help us unlock the potential of this, I would say life-changing technology. It really is already transforming every part of how we live and work. And you know already that agriculture is the least digitized industry sector. I believe we don't have to be the last one to the table when it comes to the power of unleashing Gen AI. So let's be actually at the forefront of bringing use cases that can help to improve productivity, that can help to make our supply chains more efficient and, of course, sustainable, and to help people get to the food that they want in those ways that are, positive for the planet. So without much further ado, I'd love to turn it over to you, Dawn, to tell us a little bit about, how you got into this space, because I think it's really interesting. You are an agri-food innovator, entrepreneur, lover, builder, and you have also worked for some of the big organizations, including McKinsey, where you have helped to, bring this toolkit to some of the world's biggest organizations. So give us a glimpse into your story and introduce yourself in that fun way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Dawn Musil. As Christine mentioned, my background is in ag tech and food, but this is really coming from a very personal lens. So my original upbringing was on a farm, an apple farm, and we had issues with our pollination. And so we were recommended to bring in bees and beehives, and that really started me on a journey in ag tech and specifically pollination. So I started my own bee brokering business for a couple of years right out of college, and then ended up getting the opportunity to transition that to a larger org through acquisition, and then spent a couple of years in the UK and Europe working at both Oxford and at Rabobank in their innovation teams, just really building just agroforestry efforts and resources for scaling sustainable food systems. And most recently have spent the last few years with McKinsey's agriculture practice in North America, doing efforts, consulting resources around the world. And then really recently just realized this tools that we need are these Gen AI tools. They're the modern alchemy. And so I've spent the last couple of years with McKinsey focused on Gen AI for agriculture and basic materials. So this can range from small startups that we've worked with and some nonprofits all the way to Fortune 500s and everything in between. So I'm really excited to get to share that with you today.
I love that you're describing Gen AI as modern alchemy, and I can't wait to hear more about what exactly you mean by that. And I also think the lens you're bringing is really special and unique and fits this kind of GIGA mission, which is that combination of delivering real tangible business value with positive impact. So it's great to see that you kind of played, a role in doing that across the value chain and with, big players through to small. Because I see from the comments that we have exactly that mix of people here in the audience. I know some people are working with smallholder farmers. Some people, it looks like, are working with greenhouses and growing systems. And others are working with some of the big agriculture players in Europe. So exciting to see the questions that everyone has. So let's get started. Are you able to share screen or do you need me to? I have it set up for you to, but
Yes,
you
it's not letting me. So if you wouldn't
of
mind, go ahead.
course, of course. So let
Thank
me
you.
just get this ready and over to you. So share. Here we go. Wait, I'm gonna do portion of screen. There we go. All right. Now you can see that. And I think what I'm really excited for is we're going to go beyond just content creation, right? We're going to really see Gen AI as a powerhouse for so many other things. And I'm a student today,
Absolutely.
which I love. I mean, I feel like I only have scratched the surface of Gen AI. So let's rock and roll. Shall I go to the next
Absolutely.
slide?
Yeah, we can go ahead and kick it off. So you guys all know what the topic is that we have today. I just want to give you a little bit about what we want to expect. So really want to focus today on the tools for the COOs, CEOs, CMOs, and CTOs. So the reason I'm doing this is because we really, if you're in a small startup, you're wearing many hats. If you're in a large organization, then you know your role, but you're still probably exploring some of these tools. And we're going to really focus on some of the simple tools that, when used correctly with great prompt engineering, or even just a little bit more of kind of a deep dive into what capabilities there are, can really expand your usage of generative AI tools. So it'll be simple but practical. And then we'll also play with some really fun tools. So my favorite being Replit. It is modern alchemy. You can go from idea to a working app in 15 minutes. It's wild. So we'll get into
Oh,
that. So for the CEOs and COOs, we can do a little bit of that. Oh, sorry, back a
no,
little one
back.
page.
Yeah, sorry.
You're good. We're going to streamline some of the reporting, operations, and team workflows. For the CMOs, this is really more around the content creation and comms. And then the CTOs and chief product officers, it's really that prototyping and then bringing to life a vision, a tool, or a segment of your code that you want to bring to life faster and more efficiently. So we'll
Mhm.
go ahead and take a look at what's next. Why are we doing this right now? Everybody knows that AI adoption is skyrocketing. It is no surprise that Gen AI can really help small teams, but it can also help scale up the actions and vision of large teams too. So what we've seen at McKinsey and our most recent report on Gen AI is that 80% of leaders expect AI to transform their work at their organization in the next 3 years. But only 30% of leaders are currently adopting these Gen AI tools formally into their workflow. So we're going to try and close a bit of that gap today and really dig into how do we empower each of you guys to use these tools more effectively and ask the right questions and approach it with the right curiosity so you can help scale your organization smart.
I love that. I really like that last point that you talked about, the complex narrative, tight budgets, and diverse stakeholders, because that is indeed the scaling challenge that everyone is facing in this wild, volatile economy. So excited to dive in.
Absolutely. And especially in agriculture, for
Yes.
sure. And so I wanted to start with some very basic elements here. Christine, you'd mentioned the AI and then focus on Gen AI. We're focusing on that Gen or generative AI elements. And I just want to give a quick overview for those who are not familiar with it, which Gen AI differs from AI or artificial intelligence because it can create new content from existing resources. This can be either resources that you input, or often it's resources that exist already in the large language model's training database. So if you think about ChatGPT, when you do nothing and you just write directly into the chat, it is using the database that they've put together on OpenAI. However, we're going to go into a little bit today of how you can create your own generative pre-trained transformer, which is a version of this large language model. So what these large language models are the engines behind a text-based generative AI tool. So they're trained on these massive data sets to understand and generate human-like language. So instead of having to be a programmer or software engineer, you can now use basic and English language prompting or English language programming. So it learns the context from your input, and it'll respond accordingly, which is why prompting becomes such an important part of your experience. I think one fantastic example of a difference between prompting is you can go from getting an entire detailed research article or just one response, depending on how you prompt it. So on our next slide, we're going to talk about just some of the basics around quality prompting. So before I jump into these three components here, you'll often hear it referred to as prompt engineering. Do not let that intimidate you. In fact, it should be exciting. It's just a simple way people get really excited. And I think as this becomes a more English language programming and a natural language processing tool, the engineers still like to keep that engineering brand. So that's
Dawn,
just
can I
all they
ask a
mean.
quick question, if you don't mind, quick
Absolutely.
interruption? But like you keep saying English language, is there going to be more languages that are providing the data sets for these LLMs? How's that
Yeah.
looking? Yeah.
A great question. So at its current state, we see some of the highest quality or the largest data sets with GenAI and ChatGPT coming from OpenAI, but we also see like DeepSeek and these large data sets and languages that are in English or in Chinese or in Mandarin. But by and large, the content that is made on the internet is a majority in English. So
Okay.
there's actually really interesting challenges that are being faced right now in smaller language families
Hmm.
where they don't have the same data. They're trying to create and gather more data sets and also more language training models in each language. So English is still kind of the gold standard. Mandarin, there's definitely opportunities there. Russian is also growing very, very quickly in terms of natural language programming in that language, but
Hmm.
it's kind of the standard right now is in English.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So, and yeah, thank you for the questions. And yes, absolutely, this is interactive. So if anyone has any questions as we're moving throughout this, please feel free to ask. So one thing I just want to note before we jump into the tools that we'll be using is the quality prompting components. So we have three elements here: context, instructions, and output. The context is what you're going to give to the tool itself. The more you can provide, the more relevant it can respond to you. So for example, I'm building a consumer packaged goods startup focused on protein packed snacks from crickets. We're pre-seed, testing product market fit, preparing a pitch deck. You're giving it a what, a who you are, and what you're looking for. You then want to give it instructions. What exactly do you want to get out of this request? And again, more specificity will result in more accuracy on your output. So, can you rewrite the problem statement slide for our pitch deck? And then the output is, what format do you want this in? It can either be where you're putting it in file type, in the format of, do you want it in markdown format so another software tool can use it? And this just allows it to be sure it's understanding what you want and can give it to you in that format correctly without you having to do any additional work. Now, I want to take a quick pause here and let you know this is not the only way that prompting is done. This is one of the gold standards of quality prompting, contains these three elements. But what we are learning as engineers ourselves of exploring all these Gen AI tools is depending on the tool and how it's been trained, you can optimize it with different prompting approaches. So this is a really great starting point. This is a baseline for how you want to learn prompting, but be sure as you're learning other tools, and I'll mention a couple of those throughout the rest of this discussion, that you're checking what the best prompting approach is for that tool.
Experimentation, I guess, a little bit.
Absolutely. This is
Mhm.
really a space for experimenting.
Yeah.
So, want to start it off with some of the state of the art tools for COOs and CEOs. None of these should look brand new, especially not ChatGPT, but a really unique use case that most people haven't leveraged is building a custom GPT. So that's a generative pre-trained transformer using your own data sets, your own information that you can then create repeatable responses or actions. And it means that your work can be publicly shareable. So you can create a chatbot or a tool instantly that can be shared for use on your site or with your teams. So very useful, again, all wrapped into that ChatGPT cost, but something that is a very, very powerful use case for many workflows. Claude Projects is similar, where you can integrate your Google Drive and your Google Docs. So for example, one workflow here, which we'll get into the details of, could be that you're having a conversation, recording a discussion with a client on Otter. You're then connected through N8N into your Google Drive, which is automatically linked to your projects. So you can automatically have an output of here's our next steps and here's what we're going to be moving forward on our project. I use this for a lot of individual consulting work, a simple streamlined workflow, leveraging existing tools in Claude projects. So really wanting to kind of highlight here that you don't need to reinvent the wheel with automation integration and your first look at your tools. You can really go back and say, what's already existing,
Mhm.
GPTs, projects that I can leverage to accelerate my process. And then we can talk about integrations later. And
Nice.
for our last one, pitch deck generation, a tool that's been developing recently and I've been really enjoying playing around with is Gamma. It allows you to have additional contributors, build slide decks, build marketing material, but really to tell your story of what you're doing. Gamma is a great place to start. With a small caveat, it's not going to be McKinsey style slides today, but I can show you some tips on how to create those and make better use of this tool itself.
Amazing. I have a question on Claude. If it's connecting with your Google Drive, does it get access to everything? Are there privacy issues that you need to be aware of, or can you make some things not available?
Yes, great question. So it's not connecting with your full drive. It's
Okay.
connecting with specific documents in your drive. And I'll show that in just a little bit here of what that actually looks like.
Okay.
But good question. So case study for custom GPT. And again, at the end, I want to go through some of these demos because it's really, really important for you to just be able to see how it works. But they're a small climate startup and they used a custom GPT for investor startup or investor updates. So every time they would have a team meeting, they already had a standard of what they wanted the investor updates to look like. They would integrate at each time they'd update the investor updates with that single prompt. So one other way to say this is if you put a prompt into ChatGPT over and over again, for example, clean up this email or update this page or uh, edit this verbiage, if you're putting anything into ChatGPT more than 3 times, you should create a custom GPT with that prompt
Okay.
and create it with your own gold standard. That way, you are allowing yourself to save, even though it's seconds of time, you'll have a repeatable process that's consistent because every time you prompt it, if you're using slightly different verbiage, you're going to get a slightly different outcome. So if you know that you always want your investor updates with 5 bullets of summary, a subsection on customer updates, and then at the very bottom a roadmap next steps, you can build that in and every time be getting the same output when you put in new notes or materials.
Mhm.
So this is to help you with consistency and also saving time in your workflow overall.
Amazing.
And similarly so, if you're in, the space where you're winning clients through RFPs or you're having continued conversations and it takes a series of different discussions to win that relationship, the custom GPTs or Claude projects in this case is an excellent place to work. So this one example is work I've done with the Nature Conservancy. I have an ongoing consulting relationship and work with them. And every time we have a conversation, I record that, track that. That goes into the new updates for RFPs and for the project. So it's all streamlined. Instead of having to do the work of aggregating those notes and materials, it all goes into one single place that I can reference through prompting and update my insights and materials every time that go out as weekly reports to their team.
Amazing.
Um, Yep, absolutely. Perfect. Thank you. And then one other team that I've had the privilege of working with is Coffee Trace. So that was a friend that came to me with an idea, and he's like, I really think I want to try to build this, but I don't know how to build the story around it, and I need some help. I have a standard prompt. Again, these are all ones that I can share at the end for people interested. The standard prompt to create a pitch deck that includes some of the critical components. So we used Y Combinator as a standard for the pitch deck and their application decks. We trained it on that. And then I input a friend's idea and it helps output an optimized deck. So again, very simple, and you can always go back and edit these, but it really allows your workflow to be streamlined when you're using tools and using them with effective prompting.
That's an amazing idea. I have definitely used ChatGPT a million times around pitch deck and writing, but to give it a standard like a Y Combinator kind of like benchmark to work towards, that's a really great idea. I guess,
Yeah,
yeah, there's plenty of those that we could be putting in. Super.
absolutely. And that's actually one of the examples that I will go ahead and show at the end once we've
Okay.
gone through the rest of our materials, because I think it's really important when people see what's the gold standard and how do I use it in my own workflow.
Yeah.
So similarly, so for the chief marketing officer, we've all seen the content creation elements. This is a really big component where prompting comes in. So all of these are image or video generation tools, which are improving rapidly. If you see the image generation from last year to now, there's been an exponential rate of just growth and change to the point where we can now see people that look and feel very real in these video generations. But this is critical when it comes to prompting. You have to be putting in the right prompts to be getting the right output. So, again, going back to that context, instructions, output is critical, and following gold standard examples. So, I'll walk through a little bit of that in the next couple of slides. But the three that I selected here, oh, sorry, um,
Oh,
were,
should I go back?
yeah, if you go
Yeah,
back for just a
sorry.
second. No, no
Apologies.
worries.
Yeah.
No worries at all. So we have Midjourney, Dolly, and Runway. So the Midjourney is, again, gold standard image generation. There's many more that are popping up. I'll give you a full library of resources at the end for other options, but keeping it simple is sometimes the best place to start. And if you already have ChatGPT, then you already have access to Dolly. So learning how to use those existing tools more effectively is going to strengthen your workflow, allow you to click around less, but still create the images that you're looking for. And then last but not least, Runway. It's so much fun to play with. I absolutely encourage everyone to play with these video generation tools because you will be surprised in what it can create, whether it's around a narrative that you want to tell and your own work for marketing, or if it's just around instructions that you want to help your team better understand something. There's so much opportunity here in the video generation space. So we'll talk about that in just a second. So Coca-Cola, this is one of the gold standards. I think we can press play here. It should be
Okay.
able to work. Let's see. No, I guess we don't have sound. But this is, again, using the simple tools that if you already use ChatGPT, which I think a quick show of hands, many of us already do, then you already have access to these tools. So we'll let it keep playing for just a second.
Should I pause it?
Oh,
Keep
no, you can let it, yeah, you can let
Okay.
it play through.
Can we make it larger, like full screen, if you
Yeah,
click on
can you
full screen in the
expand?
corner? Please.
Yeah, so you can see what they're doing here is going through a full workflow of using existing images. They took an image, they removed the background, which you can do in ChatGPT and Dolly. You can add in additional backgrounds. There's already existing libraries. It'll generate multiple versions of a vision, of whatever vision you put in, and you can overlay. Like this is all things that you can be doing in Dolly itself. And then they've also built all these different visuals, images, and an additional video generation tool using Dolly. So this is now something that Coca-Cola is using as a part of their gold standard campaigns, and it's so simple. It is absolutely changing the way that marketing is done across the board, and it's really about how you're using those tools. So again, I'm not going to get into as depth. At the very end, we'll do some demos live in these tools. But just to understand the capabilities here, you can have an image, you can remove the background of it, of your product, you can replace it with other backgrounds, you can put it in the hands of, celebrities if you have the pictures, you can put it in different locations. Like there's so many different opportunities for using these tools to tell a whole new story with existing marketing material that you have. So this is just one of the many tools, but Dolly is, in my perspective, gold standard because it's already in your toolkit if you're using ChatGPT. So taking it to that next level means you're adding to your workflow without adding to the stress of learning a whole new tool. So we'll go to the next page. And this is a really fun one. So the AI for Sustainability, this was a story, an AI-driven creative superside. So they worked with a storytelling campaign and basically said, we want to help people better tell their story. So this was a Syngenta partnership, and then Midjourney did a call for campaign or so the targeted social campaigns. And they said, let's reimagine what it's going to look like to tell the story of a sustainable future. So they ran this campaign, had people generate images, and this was just a good way to get it into the tool, get these tools into the hands of users who don't typically use them. So people who are growers or farmers, producers, and really educating them about what it can do for their own story. So they actually partnered very closely with the Cosmic Crisp Apple researchers in Washington and help them tell a full narrative of their story, which if anyone, are you guys all familiar with the Cosmic Crisp
No,
apples? Oh,
I've heard
okay.
of
These are,
Honeycrisp. Is it like a
oh,
Honeycrisp?
it's way better. It's
Oh,
the best apple so far. So they've done lots of research. As Washington State University did tons of research on what creates the best apple, the texture, the flavor, the crisp, the size, so
yeah.
many things. It is a user-centered design example of an apple. And the fact that you haven't heard of it means there's still some work to do on the marketing side. But that's exactly what the partnership with Syngenta was intended to do, is how do we tell the story of these food products? And so they did this partnership, ended up telling a story and launching a campaign in conjunction with Cosmic Crisp. I didn't have their permission to use it on this slide, so that's the only reason they're not on here. But
Yeah.
it's an easy way to, again, tell a story of what product you have using the tools of Midjourney and existing creativity that people use online. Get inspiration, take that, and reuse it for your own stories. So
I love
that's
it.
just one example there. And then, as I mentioned, we'll go into the video generation later.
Mm-hmm.
So this is some of my favorites. We'll take a quick moment to pause, though. Are there any questions on the marketing tools that we'd mentioned before we jump into CTO tools? No? Okay.
I have a quick question, if that's okay, Dawn. Like, what if you are going to do a full, all in Gen AI tech stack for marketing? What do you think a full budget should be around this?
Ooh,
Sure.
that's a challenging question in terms of budget because
Okay.
I would say at its current state, Polly and I just saw your message. I love it.
Yeah.
At its current state, these tools are streamlining your process overall. I think one way to think about it more effectively could actually be based on the Meta Ads library. So,
Okay.
for example, I would go there and look at that a comparable um, competitor in your
Yeah.
space, and then you can actually see what they're spending because given
Yeah.
the current tools, your Midjourney, your Dolly, your costs should be incredibly low. You're
Right.
paying for whoever is going to be running and managing those tools,
Yeah.
but then the monthly costs of those tools themselves are incredibly streamlined. I would suggest perhaps you're using Dolly, maybe Canva and Midjourney, and
Mm-hmm.
then understanding what the examples of your peers are doing and seeing the campaign amounts that they're spending.
Yeah.
So I know, for example, for a a small size consulting firm, which is what I am now since I've left McKinsey. They're spending about $1,000 a month and getting really high hit rates in their Meta Ads library, which you can easily go in. And I can show that as well if that's helpful at the end to understand what competitors are doing, what their cost is comparatively, and what's working for them. So
Perfect.
very,
Thank
very rough there, but definitely size dependent.
Nice. I know we have a
Thanks.
couple of CTOs on the call, so excited to hear this section if you want to jump in.
Absolutely. I am super excited about the state-of-the-art tools for chief technology officers. Once again, I want to caveat this with the fact that these are changing daily. So all of these tools, and yes, Jim, we will be sharing the slides afterwards. We are at a place where new tools are being constantly generated. There are so many different opportunities. So I am in no way covering the full expanse of these tools. I could name probably 20 off the top of my head, 10 of which I have retired from my toolkit of favorites in the past few weeks, simply because Lovable, Cursor, and Replit have really continued to push the envelope and offer high quality material when it comes to front end and prototypes, as well as full stack development.
Okay.
So these are a really cool opportunity where I think this is something that's been mentioned to many people. AI is not at a state where it's going to replace people today, but those who use AI are going to replace those who don't. And especially in the case of your software engineers, where they can program at a 10x speed and effectiveness when they're leveraging these tools, it's really important to understand what's out there. So each of these three tools are software engineering tools. They're code companions. So they're going to help you code going from your natural language software idea, tool, app, website, plugin, chatbot, whatever it is, directly to a working prototype. In some cases, it can be the full stack and actual deployment to a site. In some, it can just be the mock-up and prototype. And yeah, we can go ahead and keep going. So this one is a rapid product prototyping. So this is, everyone is familiar with Corteva. They've tons and tons of different product development cycles. They're working with a lot of different smaller organizations and have recently leveraged GenAI in a more effective manner to increase the speed of these prototypes. So very, very simply put, they're leveraging Lovable and then simple programming, which I'm going to show you in just a moment here, and using the description of what they want to see, turn it into a prototype that can be tested with users immediately. And the reason I really like Lovable for this is you can do rapid product prototyping, really good visual layout on the front end, and you can also build a quick landing page. So whatever your use case is, you can do that within about 15 minutes tops with some editing from idea to execution. And it's absolute streamline. Yep, we can go ahead and move forward.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then my personal favorite for today and for these tools overall is Replit. I absolutely love the way it's able to quickly build. It is also the most user-friendly interface. And my favorite part is if you have a website that you like the look of or a tool. For example, I'm a really big fan of Alex Hormozi's mentor website, and I want to create one that's very similar to that. You can take a screenshot of that, put it into Replit, and it will use that as the design and take that inspiration. But for example, you want to tailor it. So I'd like it to be focused on specifically agri-food mentorship and mentees. So, help me build this. That's how simple it can be. And you can take the inspiration from a website that's already gold standard. Same with tools, plugins, whatever you'd like to use. And then lastly, you can use Figma design. So if you've already got the designs mocked up, you want to create a tool around it or a website around it, you can very easily use that to build the site or build the tool instantly.
Amazing. Oh,
Yep. So we're going to go into a few demos. This is where I'll need to share my screen. So let's play
okay.
around for a sec.
Let's see if that works.
It's not letting me.
Ah, that's
Let me just-
crazy. Advanced. I have multiple. Maybe I need to make you
A host, I think. Probably.
participant or something. How do I do that? Oh, make a host. Yes. Okay. Change. There you go.
Awesome.
Does it work
Thank
now?
you. Not quite.
Ah,
Oh, it says one participant can share at a time.
okay.
Great.
So let me, am I still sharing? No. Ah,
No.
share.
Um,
Oh, wait. Thanks everyone for bearing with us. We
yeah.
should know this by now. More.
Or-
It should allow you. I have it open for
Okay, let
multiple.
me try one more thing here. I see the green button for share, but it's just not allowing me to. So let me try one more thing.
And anyone, if you have questions, like please do pop them in the chat. If you want to send a link to me too, Dawn, I'm happy to share again.
Okay. Well, so what I want to do is demo the tool. Do you
Okay,
have ChatGPT? Because we could
I
actually
do.
fully demo. Amazing.
Yes.
Okay. So then maybe
I just
before
hope
we
how do I do this so not everyone can see everything I've been ChatGPTing?
yeah,
It
absolutely.
knows all of
So
my secrets.
no, I totally understand. So the way that
Yeah.
you'll do that is you'll go into ChatGPT
Yeah.
itself, and
Yeah.
you'll have the bar on the left-hand side, and you can
Yeah.
just click it, open
Ah,
the
there we go.
sidebar,
Yes.
close. Yep. So you'll be able to close sidebar.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but if you want to actually start with at the bottom, the center of your sidebar, or actually top, depending on if you've made GPTs or not, you'll click Explore GPTs.
Yes. And actually, I think you need to make me host again. Now that I've made you host, I am unable to share. I see what's going on here. Anyway, or we could just dive into our case studies. Is that okay? Maybe, and we can do a screen share later. Now I think Dawn is frozen. Everything's happening right now. See, we can't let technology save us. Henry, could I call you up if that's okay? If you can come on screen,
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
saving the day.
Yeah, I'm the backup.
You what?
I'm the backup.
You are the backup. No, you are the main character as always. So while we're waiting for Dawn, who I think had some technical difficulties, I was wondering, you are very sophisticated with your use of Gen AI, and I wondered if you might want to share some of your experiences, tips and tricks, anything that resonated with you from Dawn's presentation. And then when she gets back, we can dive into your case study, so we can do a live consult with you.
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty like pro technology, obviously. I run a six-person boutique global consulting firm focused on agriculture, specifically greenhouses, vertical farms, and urban farms, but really all kinds of climate smart agriculture. And yeah, I think when they first started coming out with LLMs, I dove right in. Like I tried every single one, experimented with it, looked at the best practices, and I agree with what was said. The prompts were the most effective thing. And as ChatGPT, which is my primary one that I use, rolled out more options for creating your own GPT and creating projects, I use both. So projects, I have specific projects for literally this social media campaign, this event, even sometimes, other work. And then for my individual ChatGPTs I create, I have one for writing proposals, which is something we do very commonly. And it really helps me on the proposal one, just say things with less words. I'm kind of like the kind of person that writes too much sometimes or writes really fast and makes mistakes. So that's what I love about it, is it just sort of refines the logic and the thinking. Of course, like everybody else, I learned that it makes mistakes, you need to fix things, but like proposals worked really well. The ones that were challenging that I found really interesting, especially in the early days, was it didn't know that much about vertical farming. Like it
Right.
just didn't have enough information and didn't make the right choices. So that made me feel good. I was like, okay, there's still kind of this wall between what's public information and what agriculture can do. But I
Yeah.
knew that, as per the other point, right, for our future, we need to leverage AI and not like assume it's going to replace us. So agritech has been really engaged and trying to get the team to be more comfortable with AI to use that. I have another one for writing blog posts. I write a public newsletter every week on my newsletter on LinkedIn, and I use it for that, for generating ideas and doing it. And so it sort of does my first draft for me. I can input things based on the prompts I like. These are all pretty basic things, but that's how the journey began. Now, since then, we look for all kinds of things. What I've been dissatisfied with is presentations. I think that there's no AI that's been like good enough. I lose time on it. I tried to use it for my Columbia course that I teach on climate smart agriculture at Columbia University. Didn't really work. I ended up wasting time and having to just redo it properly. It's good for outlines. So I still use it for outlines for slides, but not for those. On video, I have mixed feelings. Like it's very short, so I can use it. Like I do a lot of reels where I'm talking and I can use it as an overlay for a small clip. But even then, you sort of you should label it as AI. And I think that when you label things as AI, it has a different response. So I'm not totally a huge fan of that. On Instagram, where I'm very, very active, I tried Meta's new Studio AI. So they had these celebrity AIs, and then they allowed you to create AIs. And that was like an adventure. I tried to create the Agri-Tech AI, and
He was
I tried to.
very, very hunky. Let's just say he was a competition for you, Henry.
Well, I mean, I was like, create like whatever. Like it was
Yeah.
like create an AI that like looks like me and will answer your questions. But it was sort of like this farmer daddy. And
Yeah.
and honestly, the guy just kept flirting with like I would test it out, kept flirting, like it kept, and I tried to be like, you're serious. And it kept making things kind of sexual, to be honest. Like,
Yeah. I
and
heard that was a problem with the meta bots,
actually,
actually.
I was just checking as I was on
Yeah.
this webinar and it's gone. Like I don't have access to it anymore. It's gone.
Ooh,
So I think it had a lot of
Really?
problems. The website is still on Meta's page. When you click on the link, it
Yeah.
doesn't go to anywhere you can do it. It's been removed from my profile because I had it. And now I made it public. I
Yeah.
tested it with a few friends. With them, it went to like it was too horny. And then I
We'll
made it
edit that
private to just test it out. And the biggest thing was like, although all LLMs make mistakes, that one was crazy. Like it would make
Yeah.
up yields for farms. It would make up all kinds of things that were bad for my audience to have access to. So it would just lie. And I would say, don't lie. And then it would lie again. I would say, is this real? And it was just, no,
Yeah.
this I actually made that up. Ha ha. And it's like, no, like not the vibe.
Not
So
appropriate. Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're doing like a cutesy thing on there, maybe it works, but for anything professional, it's hard. But I would love to have more chatbots for my customers. We have a big audience that are not necessarily clients. So I'm looking for that kind of thing as well. So that's sort
Yeah.
of the range of what we use it for. Maybe you missed the beginning, Don. We're sort of talking about how I use LLMs in general right now.
Yeah. 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 No, that makes
Amazing.
sense. Don, I don't know if you have any reactions to that, but I've definitely been reading about Meta having some issues with that. And we're getting a great question from Paulina, who's asking why perplexity has not been mentioned. Actually, that's one of my favorites too. So yeah, let us know, Don, what you think. And maybe
Yeah.
before you jump in, Claire, could I invite you, if possible? I know you can't go on camera, but just to get ready to present a little bit about what you're doing, Producers Direct, and we can do like a cooperative case study here. But yeah,
Sure.
perplexity.
Yeah, so great question. As I mentioned, there's so many tools out there. I think one of the really big ones too, people love DeepSeek, even if you can have protection and safety around your data if you use it effectively. Perplexity is also a really great tool. The reason I specifically selected ChatGPT and Claude as well as Gamma is just to focus, kind of narrow the focus. And it's also because the range of things you can do, which I'm trying to share my screen still because I would love to walk you through a custom GPT. It's
Okay.
okay, not a big deal. Maybe I'll do it live with we'll even send record.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
capabilities, Perplexity is great. You can also work within Perplexity and share projects, but the integration with other tooling right now is a little bit less effective. So even when you're using integration tools like N8N or 5-Year, it's just not as easy or streamlined. Whereas you can very easily plug in a simple Google Drive, can connect with your whatever you use to record software or analyze your calls, simply goes straight into your custom GPT or your Claude project, and then can use that API to put it directly into whatever other tool you use. So maybe your emails, so your workflow is streamlined. Perplexity is absolutely great, definitely good use cases. I would highlight it for using and creating marketing content, which is exactly what you mentioned. But just for the purposes today, I wanted to narrow the focus.
Can I ask a question going back to what Henry was describing? So it sounds like, Henry, you're doing a lot like what I do, and I think a lot of people do, which is around the marketing aspects
Yeah.
of and content creation aspects of ChatGPT. But I know that you have an incredible tool that you've built, Agri-Texture Designer, which is, I guess, made for AI actually, because it's inputting so much information. It has your data sets involved. Maybe you can describe what Agri-Texture Designer does, and we could brainstorm a little bit about what like a new tech stack could look like as you're deploying that to your users and customers.
Yeah, so in 2020, when some of our typical consulting services, struggled, we decided to go digital. We took our typical sort of feasibility study that we get hired for, someone planning a greenhouse or vertical farm, and we made it digital. We partnered with an advisor, Telmo Correa, who's an AI expert, and he actually built some machine learning aspects to the software. So imagine all this data from 10 years of CEA built into a software, and then we have a form that someone can fill in where they can choose from 150 different crops, different greenhouses, locations that drive climate data, and then they get an output of an economic sort of snapshot of how that business will perform, and quite a detailed one. We're talking about farms that, are $500,000 to $50 million that are being planned on the software. A lot of them are on the smaller end, but still, significant funding for these entrepreneurs. And the software has been great for certain customers, but I think the time and cost that it took to build it versus where the market is after some of the challenge with CEA has sort of not worked in our favor. So I think about the future and I'm like, okay, well, there's so much in here that is just questions, right? If I'm growing this crop in this region, what should I think about? And we could actually have the sort of a chat bot for that, which would be just simpler questions on a subscription that I would love to leverage our IP for that. And then the other is actually taking it from ML to AI, where it's like you could create a bigger challenge. For example, some of the work we do for cities. I have a city, here's a bunch of vacant lots, work in the background and tell me what kinds of farms I should consider for my city. Not just a quick answer, but more detailed analysis that could either be leveraged by our team as part of a consultancy, or maybe in some cases for private and public clients. That's sort of the vision. I'd love your advice on that, what to consider and
Yes.
think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's, I think, two specific tools that you could use to just prototype that today, which we could even walk through if you have ChatGPT up. Yeah, Christine, I would love to share a screen. Is you can have you built a custom GPT, Henry?
Yeah, so I have three. Yeah.
Perfect. Because you can use that IP and do that, really create that chatbot conversation. So yeah, if you go in and you're going to go on the left-hand side, and if you want to stop sharing so we don't see your conversations before you do that, and then open, and then halfway down you'll see Explore GPTs, and then you can share screen again, and it all will be
Do
familiar.
you want me
But
to do it, or what's better?
yeah, I think Christine's got it. We'll just briefly show,
Okay.
because this is one tool. The other tool being Replit would be a really good way for you to be testing out. Yep. So top right hand side of your screen, Christine, you'll see a black oval that says create. Yep. And then hit create. Absolutely perfect. So just for everyone else's context, Henry, I know you're familiar with this, but you can click on the create section or the configure. And this creates your own generative pre-trained transformer. And what you can do from this is just say, you are an expert in agritecture IP, you know all the ways that we advise our clients. And based on our insights that we have so far in these documents, so you can add the bottom left-hand side there, you can click the plus sign, you can add both Google Drive documents, or you can add in any uploads. For this, I think it's up to 15 megabytes. You have a pretty large database. It's larger in projects by Claude, but this then allows you to say, all right, what are some of the key questions I want someone to ask? How do I get them started? And then you can use this as a link to share. So even just as a very, very early stage prototype of you just saying, we want to create a chatbot, this is a very simple way to do it in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I've been
And
using it for personal things. I have them all private, or I have some that are just for my team, but I haven't thought about it. That makes sense. I could do a public one and trial it there. And I certainly trust the facts on this more than the meta one. That was a disaster. So
yeah, well, and you're the one, like, you're creating that configuration too. So Christine, if you click the bottom left-hand side, the plus sign there, um, and sorry, on the left, far left. Oh yeah,
yeah,
both of them work, but yep. Yeah, exactly. So you can add and upload your own documents. You can bring in, again, gold standards for if you're like, actually, I really like the structure that this chatbot uses in, for example, I'm a big fan of McKinsey's chatbot, helped design it, a little biased there, but because of that, I like the structure that it always outputs it in. So you can really create this experience and very, very easy prototype. The next stage up, oh yeah, go ahead, Christine. You're on mute.
I know we're running into time and I want to get Claire here too, but I just wanted to also interject. I think we should do like another session just on creating custom GPTs. I've also been building my own GPTs and I find them subpar to the general chat GPT inquiries. And so I really think there's best practice here that like I'd love to get your insight on. I don't know if others feel like that could be a useful session to organize, but like I uploaded my book, for example, and was like, I wanted to create a multispectral innovator GPT. And I uploaded databases,
Oh,
of
cool.
startups and inspiration. And I thought anyone could like get a lens into next gen innovation,
Yeah,
right?
that's
But
a good idea.
it doesn't work as well as like the normal GPT. So I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. But yeah,
Always, yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely a little bit more, slightly more complex, but then very, very scalable once
Okay,
you get it right.
perfect. So I think if you're okay with that, maybe we do another
Yeah,
hour session just on building custom GPTs. Could
absolutely.
I call Claire into the conversation if
Thanks
that's
for your
okay?
advice, Don.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, and happy to chat further too.
Oh, Claire is on video. That's amazing. Claire, tell us about Producers Direct and your experience with AI and what, challenges you're facing.
Thanks so much, Christine. And if my connection goes haywire, then I'll turn the video off. But yeah, just to say, so I'm CEO of Producers Direct. Producers Direct is a nonprofit that supports about 1.3 million small-scale farmers around the world, across Latin America and East Africa. And most of the smallholders that we work with have very limited access to technology or information to tackle a lot of the risks that they're facing on agriculture and food production. But they do have a smartphone.
Oh no, I think we lost.
She's back. Oh, no, you're on mute, Claire. Oh gosh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. I'll turn the video off. Yeah. So AI has a massive opportunity to really transform the way that these smallholder farmers can not only access information, but access bespoke, tailored information that can really support them to take decisions on their farming. The challenges that we see are very much kind of some of the ones that Dawn and Henry have already talked about. So maybe just to reference these. So we've been testing two main things. One is how we can train agronomy advice using farmer data and really improve the efficiency of agronomy advice and blend kind of agronomy advice with farmer knowledge and see kind of how advisory can be transformed that way. And we've also been testing farmers using their smartphones to take photos of, for example, their coffee bushes, and we can generate kind of AI generated yield. And so on the latter one, we've had some similar experiences to Henry, not quite kind of going haywire, but certainly, the yield prediction that's generated depends on the quality of the photo that's taken. And that can be a pretty big challenge around, kind of if a beautiful photo gets uploaded, the AI will generate a really great, accurate yield prediction. If the quality of the photo is poor, then of course the yield prediction goes haywire, and farmers can make some bad results on the basis of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And similarly with the actual kind of advisory services, right? A big challenge that we're seeing is that a lot of the information that farmers can share and the data that they hold might not necessarily be in English. It might be in local languages. It might be in kind of very variable formats and not necessarily standardized and able to kind of be uploaded very easily onto to train AI models. And so I think, one of the big challenges that we see is how can we train these AI models based on the quality of data that these small scale farmers have. And if we can kind of smarten AI so that it's able to cope with fragmented, inconsistent data formats in multiple languages. I think for us, that's a really key challenge to crack in relation to how you enable AI to really open out and benefit a much wider population. Those are the things that we're working on, and definitely kind of share more, but it's brilliant to learn from today's conversations and to really see how there's potential not only to transform how we're delivering services to farmers, but how we can transform our organizational efficiency as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And these are really big questions, especially on quality of data and inputs and the insights that are actually shared. I think it's as much data as there is out there, we are still at a data shortage in terms of quality. So if you think about the fact that like, you have certain tools created for certain purposes, so like diagnosing plant pathogens and what a coffee plant might be experiencing, for example, that has to be so well trained. And a lot of the times our assumption is that, oh, ChatGPT knows everything. It doesn't. You know this. Yeah. And people, we've created like, there's definitely a trust element there. And the more specific of a tool you can use, so there are some really good diagnostic tools out there for plant pathogens that are actually trained more accurately and tested, that's going to give you more quality yields. The other side of that is if you know the exact needs of the farmers in your producers direct community, and if they're, constantly asking what are our yield outputs, and you know what they need and the kind of quality range, you can create simple tools yourself, perhaps using Replit to test it, like kind of using whatever you can do to tailor it the most to your use case, give it all of the context of photos may be good to bad, the more quality you can get in your output. It's like data in, data out, garbage in, garbage out. That's just the nature of it. And right now with ChatGPT, it's everything. They're throwing everything at it. And so it's putting out its best guess, but most of the photos and material online is not plant pathogens and farms. It's like people and celebrities. So I'm surprised, we're not getting the Taylor Swift yield outputs, honestly. But yeah, it's a very, very real challenge. And I think that's another good reason why, and I can have some recommendations too of tools and explorations I can share around, which are really for your use case, what you want to be using, or building your own. So I would really check out Replit's super user friendly, and maybe I have some videos on that online that I can share as well, because that's a good way to say, I know what we need, here's what we have, let's play around with the possibilities of what it could be that are tailored to our use case.
And I'm going to close out this session, but before I do, Henry, I saw you raising your hand, so I'd love to hear your intervention.
Yeah, I just really want to jump in here because this goes to a broader problem of data and agriculture, which is so different from other sectors like Taylor Swift, for example. And like also to Christine, what you've been doing in your career and some of your visions for GIGA, right? Like we should be able to share, at least between a select group of people, data because we have similar challenges. The question is, how much data we share? How do we make it fair? How do we make it safe? What does that look like, Christine, is my question to you, because I basically would want like a curated sort of group and a way to share that so it brings everybody up versus, I guess, totally open source is what other people say. But I don't know if I'm quite on that train, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like you knew what I was going to say to close this session
Imagine
out,
that.
because I was indeed on the exact same page. I think one note that I took, John, that came from you was that, we're not at the point right now where AI is going to replace workers, farmers, entrepreneurs, investors, corporate leaders, but those who use AI will replace those who don't. And I think what we're amassing here in this call and with GIGA and with our respective networks are people who are interested in leveraging the alchemy of AI for good, right? And so I would implore us to think about forming a kind of mastermind group to take on some of these very real challenges and gaps so that we can unleash its potential in agri-food, not just to enhance our productivity and optimization. We need to do that because we're the good guys trying to build a better planet and we need to go further faster, but also to really solve those on the ground challenges. And it's plant pathogens, it's connecting farmers with each other so they can share data and knowledge. It's also mental health services to rural areas. I mean, actually there's so much possibility here, and we need more people to understand where those gaps are and where those possibilities lie so they can build the solutions that we need. So with that, I know we're at time. I would like to basically ask you, Dawn, if we could have another session here around building customized chat GPTs. And I will be sending an email to all of you. Thank you so much for, dedicating your time to join this session. Thanks to Henry and Claire for bringing your use cases. But I'm going to send an email to say, let's set up a mastermind group to go into AI's potential and make some epic shit happen.
Thanks so
Okay.
much.
I love it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you all.
Definitely up for making epic
Yes.
shit happen, Christine.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for allowing